UFC Fight Night Song versus Gutierrez takes place tomorrow night, and it's a pretty stacked card. I'm looking forward to it. There's a couple bangers on the on the card. Some great matchups, interesting fights, and yeah, I'm gonna be giving you guys my breakdowns and predictions on the fights that I'm most interested in and looking forward to. Without further ado, let's get right into it. The first fight I'm gonna be breaking down is Tatsuro Taira versus Carlos Hernandez. Now, Taira's striking is a bit shaky, but his grappling more than makes up for it. He's 4-0 in the UFC, 2 finishes, he's just 23 years old. Hernandez is 2-1 in the UFC. One of those losses is coming by way of submission. So I think that Tatsuro Taira is going to have the advantage here on the mats. I think he'll be able to get this fight down in possibly in the first round, but definitely in the second round. And I'm going to pick him to win by submission in round 2. I think he's one of the better prospects, like undefeated prospects, in the UFC, in his division right now. His grappling is very, very good. It's just his striking isn't up to scratch. But I think he's going to be working on his striking a lot. In between fights, it's going to be one of the main things that he's working on. So I think I'm going to pick him to win by submission in round 2. I think he'll be able to survive the exchanges on the feet, maybe even win some, and get Hernandez down and sub him in the second round. The next fight I'm going to be going over is Hyun Sung Park versus Shannon Ross. Now, Sung Park is another undefeated prospect from Asia. He's 1-0 in the UFC with a submission over Seung Guk Choi. He came in on the road to the UFC kind of program, and he got 2 wins, 2 finishes on there. So if you count those, he's 3-0 with all finishes, and his record, I believe, is 8-0 or 9-0, so he's undefeated in general. Shannon Ross is coming off of back-to-back brutal knockout losses, a 17-second one-punch KO loss on the UFC 290 prelims. And I think he's just taken too much damage, to recently go in there with a young finisher like Park. And I see Park catching him in round 1, and I don't think that Shannon Ross is going to be able to deal with the punishment. I think he's going to get knocked out or TKO'd in round 1 by Hyun Sung Park. And, he's on a 3-fight skid. I think if he loses this one, especially by knockout, he's going to get cut from the UFC. So, it's a tough spot to be in. But his last loss was just so brutal. 17 seconds, one punch, overhand right, and he was out cold. So, that's a tough loss to come back from, and the way to do it is not to get in there with an undefeated finisher like Hyun Sung Park. So, bit of a iffy matchmaking on Shannon's part, but I think this is going to be a pretty calm win for Hyun Sung Park, round 1 TKO. Next fight I'm going to be going over is Kenan Song versus Kevin Jousset. Now, not much to say about this one. Song looked good against Bedoya. He had a couple moments against Gary where he dropped Ian Gary, but he was kind of getting the shit beat out of him other than that. I think Jousset's crisp striking mixed with his judo will be too much for Song. Kevin trains at CKB, one of the best gyms in the world for striking. His striking is pretty crisp, pretty decent. And I think there's a chance that Song could possibly catch Kevin. There's a chance, but I don't think that on the feet, Song is that much better than Kevin. And on the mats, Kevin's a step ahead for sure. So if Kevin can't find success on the feet, he can take Song down with his judo, possibly find a finish on the mat. I'm going to go with Kevin Jousset by decision. If you watch his last fight with Kiefer Crosby, they were kind of trading on the feet. Kevin Jousset was having decent success on the feet. He was getting tagged a little bit too, though. And then he was kind of like, what the hell am I striking with this guy for? Took him down and subbed him with his judo. I think he's a black belt in judo. He has good judo. So, yeah, I think he's more well-rounded than Song, and I think he'll use that to find himself a win by decision. Next fight I'm going to be going over is Andre Muniz versus the Iron Turtle, Jun Young Park. Now, Muniz is coming off of tough losses to Brendan Allen and Paul Craig, but the latter of which has aged pretty terribly, considering that Muniz is Craig's only win in 4 fights, and two of those losses have been brutal finishes. One of which to Johnny Walker, the other one to Brendan Allen, who also beat Andre Muniz. But Muniz is definitely good on the ground, but he's also a bit overrated. His claim to fame was submitting Jacare Souza, but Jacare Souza was 42 years old when Andre Muniz submitted him and was well past his prime. He also has the UD win over Uriah Hall, but again, Hall was past his prime and retired after that fight. Park is on a 4-fight winning streak, and he has 3 wins in a row by rear naked choke, and I honestly see this one going pretty similar. I think he's going to find the submission in round 2. I think he breaks Muniz down in round 1, finds his neck in the second, and submits him in round 2, probably by rear naked choke. The Iron Turtle's on the come up. I think Andre Muniz is on his way out. Not on his way out of the UFC, but he's on rank now. I think it'll be tough for him to find his way back into the rankings. And I think Jun Young Park is going to find himself in the top 15 or fighting for a position in the top 15 after he wins this one over Andre Muniz. The next fight I'm going to be going over is Nasrat Haqparast versus Jamie Malarkey. This fight should be entertaining. Both guys are going to be willing to stand on the feet, trade and exchange on the feet. I'm going to have to give the edge to Haqparast, though, because I thought he looked good against Landon Quinones. You know, he overcame some adversity, showed his cardio, his heart, his grit, his striking ability, and he won that fight. And I think he looked better against Makdessi than Malarkey did. I thought Makdessi was robbed against Malarkey. Malarkey did not impress me in that fight, especially considering how old Makdessi is. You know, Malarkey's a decent striker, but I think he's hittable, and I don't think he has the snap behind his shots to keep shorter guys from closing the distance on him. So I'm going to go with Nasrat by a pretty clear and, you know, pretty one-sided UD win over Jamie Malarkey here. The next fight I'm going to be talking about is Sue Maderji versus Tim Elliott. Now, Tim Elliott just took this fight on about a week's notice, maybe less than that. But I think that he'll still have the clear advantage in the wrestling, and he will have the striking defense to not get clipped by Sue, like Matt Schnell was. I think that Elliott will be able to take Sue down more or less at will, and he'll be able to control him on the ground. And I'm going to be taking Elliott by a clear UD, possibly a late sub. You know, the only losses that Elliott has in the past few years are to elite top 5 guys. You know, I off the top of my head, like Davison Figueiredo beat him. I think Mateus Nicolau beat him. Makayev beat him. Like, these are all very... Makayev is not up there yet in that top 5 level, but he's legit up-and-comer. And all those guys are just much better than Sue Maderji. You know, I think Sue Maderji's got too many holes in his game to beat a guy like Elliott unless he was able to catch him cold, which, you know, obviously there's a chance that happens because Elliott's coming in on short notice, but I think he's too much of a vet to just get caught cold by a guy like Sue Maderji. So I think he's going to take Sue Maderji down and do what he does best and take him down and wear him out and possibly find a sub on the ground. Next fight I'm going to be talking about is Anthony Smith versus Khalil Roundtree Jr. Now, I already made a whole video about this fight, breaking it down and giving my take on it, but in case you haven't seen that video, I think that too many people are overrating Roundtree here, acting like he isn't infamous for not showing up and like he hasn't lost to every legit grappler he's ever faced. You know, his 2 losses were to unranked guys in Prachnio and Ion Cutelaba, whereas Smith's last losses have been to number 3 ranked Ankalaev and number 7 ranked Johnny Walker. I think that Smith takes Khalil down and subs him in either round 1 or round 2. I obviously there's a chance that Khalil Roundtree finds the leg kicks and then gets a KO over Anthony Smith. But I just think that people are acting like Khalil is on a level above where he actually is. And unless Smith is like literally on the decline and is on his way out of like into retirement, I don't think that Khalil Roundtree is going to be able to beat him. I think that Smith has a few more fights left in him, and this is definitely going to be a pretty clear and easy win for him. Okay, without further ado, let's get into the main event. Song Yadong versus Chris Gutierrez. Now, I think that Song Yadong is going to be too much too soon for Chris Gutierrez. You know, Chris Gutierrez was on a pretty good run in the UFC. I think it was 5 or 6 wins. He got matched up with this guy, Bakarel Dana, who himself was on a 3-fight first-round knockout streak, and he got a spinning back fist KO over him, which was a pretty big deal at the time. And then that got him a pretty big amount of hype. So as a result of that, he was matched up with Frankie Edgar, who was like an aging legend at that time. He ended up KOing Frankie Edgar stiff in round 1 with a knee, and then that got him even more hype. He got matched up with Pedro Munoz, and Pedro Munoz completely shot him out in a blowout decision loss, kind of fraud checked him. And since then he's fought Alatan Geli. You know, it was a decent win. He looked pretty good, but that was a big step down in competition for Chris. And, you know, I thought Chris was somewhat rushed up the rankings after that Bakarel Dana win. You know, he was given Frankie Edgar, which was like a free pass into the upper echelon of the division because everyone knew he was going to stiff him in the first round. And then Pedro Munoz kind of just fraud checked him and proved that he wasn't ready for that level of a competition yet. And personally, I think Song Yadong is a higher level of competition than Pedro Munoz. So I don't really understand what the reasoning behind this matchup is. But yeah, I mean, Song has been on a collision course in the bantamweight division. He's coming off a 5th round KO over Ricky Simone, and I don't see this fight going a hell of a lot different than that one, other than I don't think that Chris Gutierrez is going to be looking to take Song down. I think he's going to be looking to strike with him, but I think that Song is going to find the chin of Chris around the 3rd. I think he's going to put him away with a round 3 or possibly round 4 TKO. So yeah, that's it for this video. You know, I was just breaking down the fights on the card that I'm most interested in, but I did cover more fights than I did last time. I'm going to try and cover more and more fights every time I make a breakdown, and eventually I'll be doing the whole card. But I'm going to have to just ease into it because it's a bit harder to make these videos with more and more fights. But if you guys enjoyed, I hope you would leave a like, and if you really enjoy the content, consider leaving a subscribe because you'll see my content earlier than others, and I'll be uploading at least 3 times a week. So yeah, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment what you guys think too. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.